You probably already know about the Anita Sarkeesian versus Sargon of Akkad garbage human controversy, where she had an outburst and insulted Sargon because he attended one of her panels at VidCon.
If you Google my name on YouTube, you get shitheads like this dude who are making these dumbass videos that just say the same shit over and over again. And like, I hate to give you attention because you're a garbage human. Whatever, dude.
Anita Sarkeesian posted on her feminist frequency page to justify her remarks, saying that, quote, "There is simply no comparison between being occasionally mocked or insulted online as a male anti-feminist who occupies a position of power in an overwhelmingly sexist patriarchal culture and being a woman who receives a never-ending torrent of abuse while fighting tooth and nail to create an online culture that's a little less misogynistic and a little more equitable." It appears part of that tooth and nail fighting to create a less misogynistic and more equitable online culture involves posting and promoting fan fiction in which she murders Randy Pitchford, the developer behind the Borderlands series and the Duke Nukem revival. When Notch, Marcus Persson, took to Twitter last night to disagree with the whole VidCon situation, he posted a tweet to Anita Sarkeesian's Feminist Frequency account where he said, quote, "I thought you were okay after our brief talk at my house. You seemed sane and level-headed. Unfortunately, you have turned more evil." For those of you that don't know, Anita Sarkeesian showed up at one of Notch's parties as a +1. When I interviewed Notch last year, he said that it was a normal encounter and they had a pleasant 30-second conversation. Anita has not yet responded to Notch's tweet, but Randy Pitchford, the head of Gearbox Software, did respond, and his tweet was interesting to say the least. He said, quote, "She posted a fiction story about murdering me. My child read it. That's how I found out about it. In person later, she did not apologize." Looking up details to verify his claim, it turns out that it's absolutely true. In August of 2013, Anita Sarkeesian made a post to the Feminist Frequency Tumblr page, a fanfic from another Tumblr user that, quote, "creates short 1,000-word stories based on user submissions." She further said, quote, "Someone seems to have requested a fanfic about me, and while it's certainly both surreal and bizarre, and written in the hyper-violent style typical of all Gearbox Software game narratives, I think I kinda like it." In fact, she kinda liked it enough to post it to her Twitter and promote the story. In the fanfiction, we meet our hero, Spider-Man, who is swinging through the air carrying Anita Sarkeesian. Spider-Man tells Anita that if Gearbox succeeds in bringing Duke Nukem back from the dead, the games industry will never recover. Then they are suddenly attacked by the Green Goblin, who throws his pumpkin bombs at them as, quote, "a treat from Mr. Pitchford." Anita separates from Spider-Man so that he can fight the Green Goblin while she fights Randy Pitchford at the Gearbox headquarters. "Don't worry, Anita, I believe in you, and though it might not seem like it does, the internet believes in you too," says Spider-Man as they part ways. We then have the confrontation between Randy Pitchford and Anita Sarkeesian, who shoots down two of his guards. Pitchford asks how she got the gun through the magical barriers, and it turns out that Anthony Birch had betrayed Pitchford and was assisting Sarkeesian. Anita gave Pitchford a warning shot, and after he begs for his life, she shoots him 3 times. As he lay dying, asking why, she says, quote, "That's for aliens, colonial marines." It ends with, quote, "Anita took a step up to the throne, then sat down as the whole of Gearbox Studio had gathered before her. They waited for her command. 'Let's make a game,' she said." It's definitely a Tumblr post, alright, and I'll put a link to an archived version from the Feminist Frequency Tumblr page in the description below so that you can read it if you'd like. But while this was awful writing and abnormally cringeworthy, you may be wondering, why the hell is this news? It's just a harmless fantasy. And I would say you're absolutely right, except that the fantasy here involves killing a real person. A real person in the games industry that Anita Sarkeesian has actually met and criticized. But while that makes the story a little more disturbing, it's still just fantasy violence. But now we have to consider Anita Sarkeesian's own words and statements. At E3 in 2015, when talking about the Doom trailer, she said, quote, "This level of extreme violence shouldn't be considered normal. It's not an excuse to say it's expected because Doom, that's the problem." Just a couple of weeks ago, after Notch called Anita Sarkeesian's friend Zoe Quinn a derogatory name, Anita said, quote, "The games industry, where one of the wealthiest, most powerful developers in the world feels like he can attack and demean women online. Today, the games industry still hates women, yet so many of us remain here because we love games in spite of this reality. It's time for the games industry to take a long, hard look at itself and decide what it really wants to be, then do the hard work of change." And then in late May, when the Far Cry 5 teaser came out, she said, quote, "White supremacy is maintained through violence. It's hard to imagine a game critiquing that in which you win by being better at violence." The truth is, Feminist Frequency has a history of being against fantasy violence in video games. They are even quantifying the number of games shown at E3 into how many use violence in their gameplay versus the number of games that do not. And when we get back to the Anita Sarkeesian versus Sergan of Akkad at VidCon controversy, we run into more problems. When talking to Polygon about the controversy, she said, quote, "No YouTube creator who makes videos that serve to target and harass individuals should be allowed to attend, and anyone who uses material filmed at a convention to harass individuals should be blacklisted from future events." And so my question is whether that same criteria should apply to game industry events, to people who promote fiction in which they murder attendees. I reached out to Anita Sarkeesian and Feminist Frequency for a comment on this story, and I'll update this video if I hear back, which I won't. For Game Objective, speaking truth to power, this has been Brad Glasgow. Thanks for watching.